First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Wow, Andy hitting us with a pump fake there. Graphics going back to the countdown and then back to graphics. I like it. Keeping people on their toes on this Tuesday, Tim.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah,
That
big old
quite
upper
the
level system there. I thought this was a good
presentation.
representation of it.
And note now we're the worst of the most amount of moisture vertically through the atmosphere being pumped right into the Delmarva Peninsula, all the way up there to the central valleys of Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
I was just seeing that. There's flood watches from Virginia all the way up through PA and Jersey and whatnot.
Well, and yesterday when I hopped on, I was trying to kind of explain how the dry air is kind of getting brought in, because yesterday it was almost due southwest, and it kind of still is here today, where it looks like it was coming up out of the Gulf, and that doesn't really go hand in hand probably with what most people think.
Right.
But was trying to explain, a lot of that is dry air from well aloft
There's
in the
the word,
atmosphere.
Andy. Say it for Andy,
And
'cause
that is all
obviously-
dry sinking air being
Yes.
brought down to the
Yeah.
surface.
I would say from if you go from 10,000 feet up, pretty darn dry.
And you can see, it wraps all the way from Minneapolis down through to the Dakotas, Rapid City, or where is that? No, Sioux Falls, I guess, in South Dakota, down through really the heartland of the U.S., and all the way through the Deep South and here to the First Coast end.
Yeah. And so you can go all the way west to Texas, where they're getting that descending wind aloft out of the Rockies, but then like a west-southwest flow. And if folks are wondering where is our heat going to come from, pretty much look what's happening in the Lone Star State right now. By the way, I just want to say hello, Ross. We haven't streamed together since last Thursday.
We've been streaming alone for a while here.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, was I alone on Friday? I guess I probably was.
You probably were.
And yesterday? Yeah. Where were you yesterday?
Where was I yesterday? Oh, I was being being interviewed about 43 years of life.
Yes.
That's right.
I remember saying you had a very, very important project that you were working on. I was trying to give you as many.
I was told to keep it to 30 minutes, and I knew you're going to be shocked by this, but it actually went an hour.
Only an hour.
And I was to think about 4 questions.
I would have taken the over if someone had said over or under 60 minutes. I would have said definitely take the over on that one.
That would have been a good call. That would have been a good call. The person running it, I thought jokingly said, we'll be done by 5. And we barely made it. But here we are. And there it goes, but not completely, right? We still have some showers in our area. In fact, I've been occasionally checking to see if our downpours, I know there was some concern that maybe there might be some activity that could have some gust into the 40 to 50 range, which I really don't see.
And this is kind of what we were expecting. I talked about it yesterday, showers between about 1 to 6 p.m. That certainly has come to fruition here. But these are quick moving too.
Yeah, quick, and because of what you just showed, there's just not the vertical moisture. They will not produce anything like the downpours of the last 6 days, or even what we saw in a few spots yesterday evening. Some of those spots, those were 1 to 2 inches in less than an hour?
Yeah, I would say in less than an hour.
So whereas like this, that's a pretty strong reflectivity there on the far west side, north of I-10. But my guess is that's going to put out less than a 1/10 of an inch.
Yeah, they're pretty shallow storms.
Yeah.
And even the ones yesterday, you could tell that dry air was coming in.
Getting in, yep.
Yeah, because most of the storms they topped off at maybe 20, 25,000 feet, which obviously is still high.
Yeah, but not really going way aloft.
Yeah, so that's why we did still get a ton of rain, but we weren't seeing the wind gusts and the downdrafts out of some of those storms that perhaps we could have.
Mm-hmm.
We were under a marginal risk yesterday.
Yes.
For severe storms. So thankfully we didn't have any of the wind damage or anything like that, but still some very, very heavy rainfall. This is kind of what it's looked like throughout the afternoon. You can see some of those isolated downpours strolling on in there on the west side.
Yeah.
Some breaks in the clouds, the sun returns, and then just about as quickly another one rolls on in. You can see that there. So that is pretty much a live look out at that storm in western Duval County.
That's a great shot. So it lines up right with that radar that we just saw. And folks, for you fellow forecasters out there, if you look around it, this also supports, these are just warm tops. They're dark on the bottom, but there's just not a lot of vertical development because they get up to maybe 12,000 feet and there's just too much dry air up there.
Now, were you out at all when the storms came through kind of downtown yesterday, Tim? Did you see how low some of those cloud bases were?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and because obviously
there obviously wasn't a whole lot of motion, which was good.
Right.
But yeah, those cloud bases were incredibly low.
And but yesterday was a great example of, even though the drier air was coming in aloft at the surface, we had plenty high dew points and moisture. Look at the airport. So the airport made it to 84. They dropped to 71.
And popped right back up.
And that's an example of that drier air aloft, and they're already back up to 81 degrees. Wow.
Yeah, that is quick, because I had just looked at the temperatures maybe like 15 or 20 minutes ago, and it still was at like 71 or 73. So that is a quick pop back up. The wonders of the sunshine.
Well, it's one of the reasons why, as you know, we were debating and still debating, just how hot will we be tomorrow. Certainly, it's going to be hotter.
Yeah.
But it's one of the reasons that I was thinking maybe we will officially get to 90, just because that atmosphere is already got plenty of potential heat. And once those warmer temperatures come in aloft and we have less in the way of clouds, we're going to see some cranking temperatures, especially as the week goes on. But I don't want to get too far ahead.
No, I was going to say one thing that is going to kind of stink for a lot of folks. Now that we did get all the very beneficial rain for the most part, we definitely needed it. There's now a lot of standing water.
Yes.
And then you're going to crank the heat up.
Steamy.
So yes, very steamy, sauna-like here as we head kind of into the rest of the week and the weekend.
Okay, so it looks like that, at least on the very short term, looking at reflectivity, that system north of I-10 and west of 295 is already a little bit weaker.
Yeah, so some quick moving stuff, maybe headed up towards the airport here shortly. But this is probably the last somewhat decent rain chance over the next, week or so? Maybe some isolated stuff this weekend?
Yeah. Oh, sir, I agree with you, for a week and maybe even 10 days. I don't want to go all the way through the month, but it does look like that building ridge is going to kind of call the northern Gulf as like an anchor, which would put us, near the ridge but downstream from it.
Yeah.
For quite a while.
I think I do have that here coming up in a second. So this is kind of just a precursor to show you sunny skies tomorrow. You're going to notice the big uptick in the temperatures, upper 80s, if not close to 90 degrees. I think Jacksonville has a very good chance of hitting 90. Even more so for folks a little bit further inland, tomorrow afternoon. So this is just taking you through the rest of tonight. We're pretty much currently seeing the remainder of those isolated showers or a quick downpour here or there. But this is what Tim was talking about, that big ridge building in, not only bringing much drier air, but a big old heat wave on the way. So, Tim, how do you feel about triple-digit real field temperatures in mid-May?
Well, I think it certainly supports, for anyone who's listening, Ross did use the word heat wave. And for those of you that say, well, heat wave, it's Florida. Yeah, but it's only the first half of May. And so to me, when you combine feeling like triple digits, so feeling like 100 degrees, and then we actually look at the numerical, the history that middle 90s is about record level this time of the year, and the fact that I think at least Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, so that's 4 days in a row, and we tend to think of waves as being at least 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you. I think heat wave, even though it is Florida and Southeast Georgia, I think for this time of May, I think it makes a lot of sense.
And if you notice, I had originally paused this at about Friday afternoon and evening.
Yeah.
You go through the whole weekend, the map really didn't change at all. I mean, the heights are still about the same. The upper level flow, so those wind barbs or wind streamlines, that's at 250 millibars, so pretty much the jet stream.
Yeah. I agree. It's going to be steamy, but thank goodness we got some of that. We had that drought buster before then this solid ridge comes in.
Or we would have been in major problems for wildfires.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about not only us, but then probably even more so for our friends down in Central and South Florida.
Yeah, because there was severe to extreme drought pretty much from, I would say, southern St. Johns County down through Daytona Beach and then out through I-4 to Orlando. So, yes, very much needed rain, but perhaps going to be feeling a little bit more so uncomfortable here. Record high temperatures on the way this weekend, Tim. So this is perhaps our best chance to maybe break a record, at least what I've kind of highlighted there for Saturday. So the old record is 96, set back in 1995. Currently, our forecasted high is 97. So that's to show you what to come.
What I'm thinking is, because they have dancing in the streets and other stuff this weekend. Could you imagine, though, like if you're coming from up north where basically they've had spring weather and then you're like dropped into an outdoor event with feeling like 100 degrees. Wow.
Well, so Tim knows my parents are coming this weekend, and my dad texted me yesterday and said he's not planning on leaving inside. We have plans to go to the beach and
There
stuff
better
like
be
that.
some good sports on.
Yeah, he was like, I'd like the AC to be cranked up, quite high or perhaps quite low, so to speak. And
He'll take care of Enzo.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Is
that's
that-
another thing. Enzo, and I mean, I'm sure a lot of dogs
Yeah.
I think this affects them just as much or even more so than us. He's got a pretty thick fur coat, and he just pants and pants and pants. Even when he is inside, if he runs around outside for a little bit and comes in, it takes him a while to cool down. So don't forget about your pets.
That's a great
Especially
point. Now,
this
is there enough water to where Enzo can play in the water again, or no?
Well,
In your local pond?
yeah, there is.
Were you trying to keep him from doing it?
Well, no, not necessarily. So I get a little spooked sometimes with, I hear people talk about like the water moccasins and the cottonmouths and stuff. I'm not really as concerned about the gators, at least at the pond that I go to.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that. There's a lot of birds out there and fishermen and stuff.
Well, plus, didn't you say it went dry for a while?
Well, it was starting to get low.
Yeah, okay. Because to me, those kind of tanks that get super low, I do
Yeah.
think they tend to be a little bit safer, just
Yes.
because stuff can't live there.
But yeah, the snakes and stuff, I'm
Yeah.
terrified of snakes. So I'm slightly concerned about that. But if
Yeah.
Enzo jumps in, I guess I'll jump in with him. Whatever makes him happy.
Oh, so that's the deal. He wants you to get in when he gets in.
Oh, there have been times where he's like, "Dad, I'm done. I'm not chasing after that. That bumper, the toy that we throw in. I'm not swimming that far out. I'm too tired." So there have been times that I've had to strip down there and wade myself into the water.
Oh, because then you have to get it.
Oh, well, yeah.
He makes you fetch it.
Now I've had people tell me, "Oh, I would have just left it," and I'm like, "No, I'm not just leaving it out there. Like, I paid money. I'm gonna swim out and get it."
So you don't have
So-
a name for it. Ours is called the moose.
Oh, okay. Well,
The moose is loose.
the moose is loose. Well, I have a multitude of them. He's got a duck that we call Ducky, and then he's just got a couple what we call bumpers. They're training bumpers for like
Okay.
bird dogs.
Okay.
Got a water frisbee, things like that. So kind of rotate through them. But yeah, sometimes he's just had enough, and he's like, "Dad, yeah, I'm not swimming out to get that."
I
one."
feel bad. All we have is the moose. In fact, the moose is in pretty bad shape right now.
You need to get Og some more toys out there.
I know this is. I'm hoping Og is not watching this right now. He's not getting jealous.
Well, you saw there at least, Thursday the heat continues to build in. You got 93, 95 then for Friday. That is going to be near record heat. And I think this does show you the actual temperatures compared to the record high. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're going to be very, very close all 3 of those days. This is another way to kind of look at it here. All of which were set back in 1995.
Okay,
Tim.
so now it goes through Monday too. Or did you already have this yesterday? Because I saw it yesterday, but I was thinking yesterday was Friday through
Yes.
Sunday.
So I'm gonna have to adjust this. That should say Friday, Saturday, and
Okay,
Sunday.
okay.
But I bet these are
Monday-
built to advance every
Gotcha.
day.
But I bet Monday's record is near the middle 90s. Now, whether it was actually 1995.
Well, I do have Mondays wrote down. I think it's 97, and it was
Okay.
set back in 1960, I believe.
No, I wasn't here for that one.
Close though. No. Yeah, I think Monday's 97, set back in 60, and then Tuesday is, don't hold me to this, but I think 95 or 96, set back in 62. So
We'll be
those
close.
records will go back a little bit further.
So we'll be close.
Yes, very close there.
You know what? Hurricane hit Florida back in 1960. Came right up. In fact, it's the hurricane that is. I still think this holds up true. That produced the most amount of counties in the U.S. were put under a hurricane warning due to this hurricane. Do you happen to know its name?
I do not.
So I'll give you a hint. There's a person that gets up with me at twilight. Actually, not twilight, first light, dawn every morning.
Donna.
The hurricane was named Donna.
Oh, should have known.
And from 1960.
Now that's interesting that the most counties were under a warning because they didn't extend them inland at that time, right? Or did
And that's why I was hesitating. So maybe this is pre-inland. But you can imagine, even if you haven't seen the track, it went right up the eastern seaboard. And
so all the coastal counties were in it,
correct.
essentially.
And so occasionally actually hit, sometimes went just offshore, came back in, and so was able to maintain it. It was at one point a major hurricane, but it was able to maintain at least Category 1 category most of the way up the eastern seaboard. And so almost every, not all, but almost every county in 1960.
Were you living in Texas at that time?
No, in 1960, because despite how old you think I am, I was only born in 59. So in 1960, I was actually still in, let's see, because that probably happened in, you're still in diapers at 1 year old, right? Yes, I was still in diapers in Wilmington, Delaware in 1960.
Well, I was going to say,
Aren't you glad you asked?
Maybe you weren't a late bloomer. Maybe you were out of the diapers.
What I'm beginning to wonder is, even at that age, without me knowing it, was my dad listening to WAMS out of Philadelphia. He would have this radio on early in the morning in the kitchen, especially on Saturday and Sundays. And if there was ever kind of bad weather, I remember this is true, I do remember as like a 6-year-old sitting there hoping they would talk about weather. I don't know about as a 1-year-old, but I wonder if it kind of filtered in and started the whole thing.
So were you were in Wilmington for Hurricane Donna coming up the coast?
Correct.
But you were just a small kid.
In diapers as well.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I honestly remember that.
And have we had would Hurricane Sandy kind of compare to that? I guess Sandy didn't impact
No,
folks down
well,
here as
because-
much as they did up north.
Right. Sandy went out and came in. I would say the closest one, and I think, well, no, you probably didn't quite experience. You heard about Agnes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, yeah. So Hurricane Agnes in 1972.
Yeah.
That, where I'm from in central PA, everyone talks about the flood of 72.
The Susquehanna, right?
The Susquehanna and all the smaller rivers and stuff flooded. So
now that was a slightly different one because that hit the Florida Panhandle, and so I think dropped below hurricane status, but stayed close enough to the East Coast, obviously, to pump in the rain.
Okay.
But I would say that might be the closest as far as just hitting the eastern seaboard from the Gulf all the way up.
Yeah, I mean that was like unprecedented stuff for Pennsylvania and the Northeast. My mom's family, they kind of lived up on a hill but by a creek, and they lost their whole house.
And they were up on a hill, or they felt like they were. Wow.
Yeah, but then everyone back home, they all talk about the 1972 flood and the pictures and stuff. So
now that one I definitely remember because I was 12 to 13. By then I was drawing weather maps, and I was definitely my own. And in fact, by then I was doing. I would do tape recordings. No one would listen to me, but I would be tape recording. So I was probably right there with. Now, do you know who the meteorologist on TV, at least in one of the stations, was in Philadelphia at that time? Dr. Francis Davis.
Oh, I was not going to know that.
You should ask your relatives about that.
Okay.
I'm actually curious to see if that's actually his name or if I just.
Well, we didn't get Philadelphia weather.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
You were too far west?
Yeah, we got Harrisburg.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting stuff. Sorry, we went off topic there a little bit. We had some technical difficulties. So.
And I guess we should say there's no hurricane concern right now.
Yes, no hurricane concern right now, although we are, just 3 weeks away from the official start of hurricane season? June 1st?
Today's the 13th, so you're being generous.
Yeah,
some
less than 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
2.5.
Yeah.
Big takeaway here, folks, is as you head into the weekend, this is going to be our first, not only real heat wave, but, flirting with real field temperatures of that heat index above 100. So real field is going to be really anywhere from about 100 to 103, perhaps 104 in some areas, a little bit closer to the St. Johns River or areas, closer to a body of water. So key takeaway here is try to stay hydrated as best you can over the next couple of days before we get to the weekend.
Great point.
Because if you try to hydrate on Saturday, you're probably already too late.
Right.
I know, Tim, as a runner, you know that.
Yeah,
I think
physiologists, they've done now peer-reviewed stuff, and you help yourself out so much, just exactly what you said. Try to do it a few days beforehand.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is it is the weekend, but I do think there's a tendency for people who, for lack of a better word, are office people Monday through Friday. That is the one time they're out in the sun in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. And so unlike construction workers and others, they don't have the experience of, it's getting pretty hot. And you're out there, maybe having some fun drinks and whatnot. So, hopefully we can just keep it fun. See if this makes sense, Ross. In my opinion, heat like this on the weekend is almost, it's the opposite side of the coin of a rip current. But it's sort of the same situation where it's not stormy weather.
Yeah.
In fact, because the weather, at least it's not stormy, people are outside, and kind of like a rip current. It's actually
looks deceiving.
It's the nicer days where we get more concerned about the rip current because that means more people are getting in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
And same thing like this weekend. At least nothing like last weekend as far as chances of rain, but that heat is going to be It's gonna.
Yeah,
if you're out there for, I mean, I guess my point is, if you're out there for hours versus just 20 minutes, it's going to accumulate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and the heat takes it out of you.
Yeah.
Especially when you factor in the humidity. Yeah, I think if the heat, with mid-90s was happening today and tomorrow, it might not be nearly as impactful because so many folks are either, inside at work.
Right.
It would really be, your construction workers or, your landscapers, folks like that who are working outside who are having to deal with it. But typically they're a little bit more prepared to handle those conditions.
Yep.
Whereas if you work inside in an office all day or, even
used
us
to AC.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're used to being inside in the cooler conditions. So when you do go out there, it sneaks up on you real fast.
Yep.
Do you have anything before we go here? We got, a minute and a half. Talking about dancing in the streets out there at the beaches.
So Dancing in the Streets is at the, for those who don't know, it's at the town center at the beach. And so that's where Atlantic and Neptune Beach meet. I've been told by the one of the guys who actually helped set this up, he said it's going to be bigger than ever. They're going to be more roads blocked off for people because they're going to have more bands than ever. So so a lot of people, and they've already said they have extra fans, they have extra hydration, so they're already preparing for it. So there's no part of them saying don't come. They're saying come on down. But yeah, going to be.
And what time is that on Saturday?
And that is pretty much all day. I don't know exactly when it starts, but I think as early as noon.
Okay.
And then it's going to go. It's going to go till late. Since we have a little bit of time, and most of us did not get to see the full moon last night because of the clouds. Tonight it's still 97% full. It rises at 9:31.
And it's the flower moon.
It's the full flower moon, exactly. Yep. And maybe not perfectly clear, but probably have a pretty good chance of seeing it. So.
And why do we call it the flower moon?
April showers bring us. Now, as we know, that doesn't really work so well in Florida, more like Pennsylvania, but still.
Yeah.
There we are.
There we go. So there is one last look at your 7-day forecast.
Look at those numbers.
First day back to near 90 will be tomorrow afternoon, and then we just continue to climb the ladder rung by rung as we head into Friday and the weekend here across the First Coast. Thanks for watching, folks, and take care.